Brendan, thank you very much for joining us. Your book actually lists an awful lot of mistakes that kind of got us to this point, talks about that. I'd like to talk now about what happens right where we are at the moment and where we go from here. Do you see a clear route out?
Well, in many ways, I see the best route out as being an early exit by Greece. And that, in fact, if an early exit by Greece from the system was to be accompanied, or in fact, ideally led, by definite steps to recapitalise banks in France, Germany and Italy, we could actually find, surprise, surprise, that the equity markets like this.
Why is it that, at the moment anyway, Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy seem not to want to go down that route? Very clearly they're saying that the Eurozone must stay together.
Well, I think we're going to say that even if they had changed their mind by this point. It's a bit like denying a devaluation until it takes place.
Yes.
So we could be in that situation, and clearly there's a divergence of opinion between Sarkozy and Merkel on this. But the thinking behind the idea that actually an EMU exit by Greece would be good news is, first of all, what it does to German public opinion, who's weighed down by the thoughts of higher and higher taxes in the future to pay for all of this.
And it would certainly be popular at home.
And so it'd be popular. Secondly, we can see that there's a definite limit to how far Germany is prepared to contribute towards any bailout operation. And if this bailout operation is going to be squandered in Greece, then there's less available towards what's absolutely required to stem the crisis in Italy. So it's like a strategic retreat. And so the news that the Greece operation's been halted, in fact, could make one more sanguine about the chances of a core being maintained.
Now, if there were to be a default, other people have said that the Greek banks would simply go. They hold so much Greek debt they wouldn't be able to cope. Do you think that's possible, and is that the kind of collateral damage that would just have to be sucked up? Well,
I would disagree with that. Remember that if Greece leaves the EMU, Greece would most likely have some sort of semi-hyperinflationary situation with a drachma and 100% inflation. Now, in that situation, who ends up paying for the default in Greece? It's actually the depositors with Greek banks. They will only get back a fraction of what they had in real terms. So it will be sorted out by the inflationary process inside Greece.
And what about the knock-on effect to other banks in Germany and in France? Are they able to withstand that?
Well, unlike the Lehman crisis, which to some extent came out for blue, we've had months and months during which everyone's been using their calculators to work out what the worst case scenario is for a Greek default. And let's say people only get back 10 cents in the euro on their Greek debt. That's well reckoned with at today's equity market valuation of the main banking groups in Europe. So there's no big surprise here. The key question is containing the contagion and the knock-on effects. And here we come back to the bank recapitalization and the importance of that.
Yeah, I mean, the key is, how do you actually ensure that we have just ring-fenced Greece? And is this going to be something that we can get rid of? You get rid of a Greek problem, or do you actually just start a peripheral country's problem and make it even more intense?
Well, I would be sanguine that it does the opposite, that by closing the Greek chapter, and well, of course it's not closed, but by making clear that we're not going to have Eurobonds or anything else, and that this is really going to be the end of the salvage operation for Greece as far as the bailout operation is concerned, it increases the prospects of there being a solution elsewhere. And I must say that the whole question of Eurobonds coming, I would see as completely the wrong step, because Eurobonds, in fact, take away from what's holding the whole system together, which is the excellence of German credit. Once Germany becomes involved in backing up Eurobond issuance, then there's no longer prime German credit.
Well, you don't think that it would actually work the other way, and in fact all of Eurobonds would kind of take the German credit rating?
No, because Germany having to back this up, it takes away from German credit. And what we have to realize in addition to this, people talk about Eurobonds, but there have already been 500 billion Eurobonds issued by the ECB itself. When the ECB expands itself as a bad bank, essentially it's issuing Eurobonds, which the only reason the ECB is solvent today, given the terrible situation of its balance sheet, is that people realize that behind the ECB stands Germany, France and Holland.
Now, if we look at what's happening with the prospect of Eurobonds, and José Manuel Barroso really saying today that it's time for them, is this a way of bringing federalism kind of in through the back door, you know, trying to make Europe more united at a time when it does seem to be quite divided?
Very much so, but I mean we have to go back to the Treaty of Maastricht and what was peoples of Europe originally approved through the democratic process. They never voted or approved through their parliaments for federal Europe. There's absolutely no indication that German public opinion or Dutch public opinion or French public opinion for that matter wants a federal Europe. They don't want a transfer union. So how can you force this on people who don't want it? If you do that, that's probably the sure road to make the whole project blow up.
Now, if we don't get a brave decision to allow Greece to move in that direction of a default and possibly an exit, if Europe just limps on, as it's been doing for a very long time, I mean, it does feel like we've been in a situation not dissimilar to this for an extended period of time now. What is the end game? Does Greece have to default, or is there a way that it can just keep going limping on?
Well, I would go one stage further back. The key driver of a timetable is not going to be the drawing up of meetings between Sarkozy and Merkel or anyone else. It's going to be what depositors do in terms of their decisions where to keep their funds. And even at this late stage in the game, there's a lot of funds that can still be pulled out of Greek banks. Now, if we get any sort of capital flight intensifying from Greece, that means there's an immediate funding requirement way beyond anything that's in the budget arithmetic. So that could force a pace. And
is there, I mean, it might maybe something of a surprise to people that there are still those kind of funds in Greek banks, but what kind of trigger would it take for that to happen if they haven't moved their money out yet?
Well, the wholesale deposits may largely have moved, but we would be looking more at the sort of retail deposit level, right, where there's still very big holdings. And of course there's questions as to, up to now, many people may have assumed that French subsidiaries in Greece were safe, but that's sort of questionable.